Hello, all. This is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. And in this particular video, I want to talk about finding ways to travel during your PhD, particularly if you're thinking of doing it in business administration. So, if you don't know, I'm a professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship, and I created this whole reciprocity platform to give back much as I possibly can. So, I created this sort of sharing economy proofreading platform, and then to get the word out, I'm doing these YouTube videos because I think it is really fun and these are really helpful. I personally think that these are helpful for people that are, we're in a boat similar to what I was in 10 years ago. And I didn't really have any resource like this. Nobody was doing anything like this. So I'm trying to be as open and honest as I possibly can with it. So how do you actually find ways to travel during your PhD? There is a lot of different ways that you can travel during your PhD. In fact, you can structure your entire PhD or your entire doctorate around traveling and going to different locations and exploring and things like that. And it's just a matter of the first thing that I would do is choose a research topic that's focused on international contexts. Right. So if you want to travel to different locations, I would do a PhD in international business, and there's within strategy and innovation. It's more of strategy, I guess, and their general management. Sometimes it's called. It is. There's a field called international business, and you can study that, and you actually will analyze how culture in different locations affects business. Now, there's also sort of an organizational behavior topic that you can study as well. It's called cross-cultural management, and it's looking more sort of the micro stuff that happens within a business with related to being from different cultures or going to different cultures and stuff like that. So thinking about the sort of psychology that happens in for individuals, or organizational behavior for individuals. And there's a lot that you can do. You can study specific contexts, for example. So if I was doing a PhD in biology and I wanted to travel, I know it seems a little bit tricky to do that, but you can study some sort of bacteria that only is from one particular location around the world that you would like to go to. So if you want to go to Australia or you want to go to Italy, we'll find that bacteria from Italy or Australia or whatever and study that. And, that's how people travel when they do their research, right? And lots of people will do that. It's not uncommon to sort of pick those kind of things. And it's actually encouraged to find these sort of remote locations because you're discovering new things. And sometimes, so for example, I'm in Florida, and let's say you've studied a bunch of stuff in Florida and you've done that for 20 years, and you're like, oh, I really know all about maybe how the Appalachian people from years ago used to live around here. And then you're like, well, I'm going to change things up and go travel and explore how indigenous people behaved in Australia. And you go and learn that stuff. And what you discover is the stuff that you learned there can be applicable to what you learned over here, or maybe they do something unique. And nobody else would understand what those unique differences are unless you've actually studied those two things. And because there's very few people that are studying those two things around the world, that you're going to be the first person to discover that stuff. So it's actually kind of encouraged to do those kind of exchanges or exploring different topics and things like that. It actually benefits research tremendously by exploring all these different sort of locations and doing different things going forward. So for example, I study innovation. And if I wanted to study innovation, I could do all this stuff that happens in Canada and the US. I'm from Canada. I now live in the US. So I could study all the stuff that just happens in Canada and the US. But you know what? I might actually learn some really cool, interesting things of how innovation occurs in Italy, because they're going to do things completely differently. Well, not completely, but they'll do things differently there that we wouldn't be able to see and observe. And we'll get some really cool insight. In fact, that there was, I believe he's out of Sweden. There was the Upsilon model of international business that was discovered by studying businesses that happened in I think it came out of Uppsala University. I believe that's in Sweden. I apologize if it's not. Um, so yeah, if that's how we sort of discover these things, is just exploring different contexts. And so it's encouraged to choose different topics that are more international. There's lots of different places, lots of different schools that you can study international business, and there's some really sort of hot centers. There's cyber, it's CIBER, Center for International Business Research. There's one in University of South Carolina. The school I was at, University of Western Ontario, has a really good center on international business. There's different professors around that are doing international business. There is Florida International University, kind of has a cluster on that. There's different schools that you can go to and study international business, to get kind of a sense of what's going on around, or to be part of that sort of the topic of doing international business. And so you can travel when you do that, and that's completely normal, right, to do it. A second way that you can travel is just use academic conferences to travel. So next week, I'll be going to, I'll be traveling to an academic conference. And so I'll be going to a different location. And that is normal to do that. And as you sort of progress in the academic career, you get invited to go to more academic conferences. There's one in Israel coming up in a couple of months. I'm not going to go to that one, but you're sort of invited to go to those things. There's one in Germany, and you can go to all these different locations, and it becomes normal. And the sort of more that you work your way up, the more travel that you can do and choose to do. So I personally choose not to do too much travel, but lots of people do choose to travel a lot, and it's sort of a personal choice in what they're doing. And so maybe if you're single, or you're more independent from your partner that you're with, and you can travel a lot, and that's totally fine, right? Like, lots of people do that, but personally, I choose to probably stay a little bit. I'm more of a homebody than other people are. So, and you could do that, right? That's totally normal to do that, to travel for academic conferences. So you don't have to just focus on sort of the international context, but you can also do the conferences as well. You can also use visiting academic positions if you want to travel and just stay in one location a little bit longer. So you can go to, a lot of people from Europe, for example, will go to the US and pick a university and stay there for a couple of months. And you just kind of set up shop at that university as a visiting position. And that is normal. And sometimes you can get sort of inexpensive apartments at those universities. Often, actually, you can get inexpensive apartments, and that really cuts down your cost. If you teach for a little bit at that university, so you just go there and you teach a course, a short course, something, you can often get you can sometimes get your flights paid for, your your lodging paid for, things like that, and they'll do a lot for you. And especially as you start moving along and you increase in your academic career and your sort of the ladder that you're climbing, right? So as a junior PhD, well, it's a little bit uncommon, and it probably wouldn't happen that much. Probably wouldn't recommend it before your comprehensive exams, but then after your comprehensive exams, you can go do that kind of stuff and travel to different places. And particularly if you're coming from a university that is not as well known, well, then you can go to a university that is more well known and visit there for a bit, and you put that on your CV, and then all of a sudden it changes how people view your resume or your CV, right? Because you have visited at that particular location. And the fourth thing that I would recommend, and this is just a matter of time that this happens, is you start developing friends from around the world. And just because like academia is kind of a close knit sort of community, and you start developing friends, and you do get invited to go stay at somebody's house every once in a while, or go to their university. You get invited to go do talks at different universities. And that's kind of a normal part of academia. And it's really nice to be part of that. And there's lots of people that are really caring about that kind of stuff. And so they'll welcome you into their home. I've done that a couple of times. in terms of welcoming people into my home. And it's really fun to do that. And you get to know different people and things like that. So, um, and when you travel, that this sort of reciprocity happens as well. So sometimes you'll be invited in their homes, and you get to, meet their families and stuff like that. And it's totally normal. That happens all the time. Um, and in fact, you build really good relationships doing that. So hopefully this makes a lot of sense in terms of finding ways to travel during your PhD. I try to think about as many sort of ways as I possibly can. There's probably other ways, but I'd encourage you to check those things out. And especially if you're starting out and this is your sort of early on in the PhD process, we'll choose topics that are related to international business, and then you're going to travel from that. And then you can also do academic conferences around the world. And then as you move in your career and get sort of older in your career, then you could start doing visiting positions and traveling and meeting people and staying at other people's houses and stuff like that, which is totally normal process that happens within academia, and it's not out of the realm of possibility. So thank you so much. And hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give me a thumbs up. I do appreciate it, and do subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right, take care. Bye.